Welcome to the Rising Tide Leadership Podcast, where we simplify the complexities of your leadership journey. All right, quick pause, because if you're serious about growing your influence, you'll want to stay connected, so make sure that you are following the show and subscribe to the newsletter so you never miss a thing. As always, I'm Scott, and joining me is the brilliant leadership strategist himself, Mr. Michael David Morales, Mo.
Man, that's the best introduction I've gotten all year. I'm going to like December. Let's do this.
I was getting too repetitive. I needed to switch up that introduction. So you know me, had to jazz it up
Love
a
it.
bit. So you'll be proud of me. I just finished actually a really great book the other day, Dare to Lead by Brene Brown. And one of my favorite stories that she told in it really just illustrates kind of what leadership is all about and what we're going to dig into today. So she tells about a time when her team was working hard, but the projects weren't really turning out the way that she'd envisioned. So at first she felt really frustrated, thinking that maybe her team just wasn't really measuring up. But then she realized that the problem wasn't them, it was her. She hadn't clearly painted kind of the picture. And as she put it in the book, they couldn't deliver what I envisioned because I wasn't painting for them. I was asking for a picture without describing what finished looked like. That insight changed everything for her. She started sitting down with each team member, describing exactly what success looked like, outlining expectations, and asking what support they needed to make it happen. The results were immediate. Projects improved, communication strengthened, and trust deepened. But there's really a key point, that it wasn't a one-time fix. And leadership isn't seasonal, and it isn't something you only do when it's convenient. It's a daily practice. Showing up, being clear, leading with courage. These are commitments you make every single day, even when it's hard, and even when you're tired. And Brene sums it up beautifully when she says, daring leadership is not a weekend retreat. It's a lifetime of choosing courage over comfort. Leadership isn't about occasional heroic moments or waiting for the right season to step in. It's about showing up consistently, leading with empathy, asking the tough questions, and building trust day after day. Clear is kind, unclear is unkind. Influence, connection, real impact aren't earned overnight. They're earned through persistent clarity and courage year-round. And that right there is what we're talking about today, because it's December, and December is where leaders actually are forged. When motivation is low and distraction is high, when holidays are here and feasts are abound, the leaders who really stay disciplined, intentional, and engaged separate themselves from the rest of the pack. And today we're breaking that down. We're breaking down what it really means to finish well and why the final weeks of the year say more about your own leadership than the first few months of a new year.
Man, I'm fired up. That's it. We can end the show right now. I love it. I love what Brene Brown says. I love the way that you put it, Scotty P. December is where leaders are made. That's the first point today. Most leaders check out in December. In fact, they check out usually before Thanksgiving, right? It's like, all right, we're kind of getting towards the end here, and it's all about convenience, less about commitment. And so people start to clock out mentally. Your people are already going to do that. If you're not a leader, if you're just somebody that's crunching numbers, or you're in a cubicle, or you're washing the windows, whatever, they're going to start checking out. So if you're a leader and you're leading people, you need to help people stay away from comfort and focus more on conviction. In fact, McKinsey research says that disengagement spikes in Q4, quarter four, because people get in what they call the holiday mindset. Now, I don't even need to tell you what the holiday mindset is. We all know what it is. When you see it, you know it. But John Maxwell says that leadership isn't an every now and again thing. It's a 12-month assignment. It's not a January hobby. I remember that so clearly. I remember coming towards the end of the year when I was younger, and I was thinking, man, I'm just so tired. And we've all said this, Scotty. Man, I can't wait till the end of the year so that I can start fresh the next year. And I'm telling you right now, if you have that mindset, it's not going to work. Because if leadership only works when you feel fresh, then you're just managing, you're not leading. And so again, another one of the John Maxwell quotes is, the secret of your success is found in your daily routine. Leaders, if you have a daily routine, if you have things that you are doing, it doesn't matter whether it's January or December or any of the other 10 months in between, you're going to be incredible.
That's so true. I just thinking about how close we are to the end, and and how easy it is to think about what's coming up and just the days that you have left of the actual, or I should say the actual working days that you have left, and how easy it is to just think about, man, do I really want to start something new? Do I really want to push through, or should I just get by with what I have, and I'll start fresh in the new year, new year, new me.
Yeah. Well, Scotty, if I can talk about one of your favorite things to talk about, which is discipline, right? Jocko says
Mhm.
discipline equals freedom. And discipline matters more when motivation dips. As an athletic coach, Scotty, you've been an athletic trainer for your entire adult career. We've been around young people, and we've both been in locker rooms. I've given a lot of speeches before, before a water polo game or a swim meet. I'm sure you've heard a lot of motivation speeches in the locker room. And what happens? Everybody gets fired up, and they're banging on the lockers, and they're hitting the ceiling, and they're high fiving, and that's good for the first
Mhm.
couple minutes, first few minutes of a game. But it's really the discipline to execute that matters when we get further into the game. And for us, we get further into the year, and the further you get, the closer you get to December, and you think to yourself, now I just want to finish. Next year will be the year. But I'll tell you this, the reason discipline matters is because anybody can start, but not everybody can finish well. Finishing well builds credibility. Quitting erodes it. Team members, the way that you end is gonna is gonna help you to begin better in whatever you're doing next. So the better you end in December, the better you are going to start the new year. And so, how consistent can you be? How predictable can you be? Leaders, you need to model that predictability.
Yeah, one of my favorite things with Jocko on discipline, is just how he talks about the need for it in times of really just hardship. It's so easy to be disciplined when things are going well. It's easy to jump to the next level, to go to the next meeting when things are going your way. But it's much more difficult to be disciplined when things are not going well. And he talks about the easiest thing to remember in his favorite story to tell is just his infamous 4:30 a.m. alarm. And if you're anybody who's tried to follow that, it is hard. If you are like me, Mo has been around and involved in the military his whole life. So getting up that early for Mo, probably not that difficult. Getting up early for me, much, much more difficult, especially considering that I have a toddler. You actually would think that'd be easy for me. Definitely not that easy. But people always ask him, why 4:30? Why so early? And Jocko's answer is always because discipline doesn't care about how you feel. And so being disciplined in times of need, just so much more difficult. And especially when it comes to leadership, when it comes to the end of the year, where it is so much more difficult to stay disciplined as a leader. Again, just doesn't care how you feel, doesn't care that it's the end of the year. You have to stay disciplined.
Yeah, and if you're only giving your best when it's easy, then you're not leading. You're just performing. Leadership is about habits. Breakdowns are going to happen when leaders rely on adrenaline instead of character. And so leaders, be a person of character. That's what Scotty's talking about right there. When you hit the alarm, when it's going off at 4:30 in the morning or whenever it is for you, Jocko says hit it once, get up, go. If you can develop that habit, it's going to make you better. I believe in that. And so I'll close out this point with this. December is going to separate those who rely on momentum for those who rely on their character. Momentum is going to fade. It's not always going to be going your way, but if you can sustain your character, that's what matters. The way that you do things now, leaders, is going to predict what you're going to do next year.
And that's so true. Jocko also talks just about how motivation is just such a lie. Motivation comes and it fades, but discipline is there forever. Man, we could stay on this topic all
Yeah,
day.
it's good
But
stuff.
it is great stuff. And man, you mentioned Jocko, and my mind just starts going. I get excited and just talk about someone who's had a profound impact on my life. And I've literally only met him once, and it was for, I don't know, 30 seconds. So, and he signed my book. But let's jump into our second point today, talking about the hidden wins and kind of leaving that leadership footprint when we talk about stepping from this year into the next, not forgetting this year by any means necessary, but what it looks like to celebrate those wins, but then also look at what we've done this year as we step into the next.
Yeah, the second and final point, Scotty, is just that. The hidden wins and your leadership footprint are going to set you apart. So let's first talk about the hidden wins. Real wins are usually invisible. We've heard it from people like Michael Phelps. I'm a swim coach. I talk about him a lot, but he says it's easy to get excited watching him swim in the Olympics, but what they don't see is him getting up every morning and getting in that 5:30 a.m. cold water. It's the quiet moments. That's where the real wins happen. That's the invisibility. So leaders, the quiet moments of integrity are going to shape your reputation when you step into the public. And so James Clear, who has one of the book of the months that we had earlier on this year, talks about the small unseen actions compound into major visible results. So my question for our YouTube audience today, for people that are listening on the audio, is what are the small unseen actions that you've been doing all year that have helped you to become the leader that you are today?
Great question for all of our listeners. I definitely think one of the things too. I think that helps when we think about habits too. I know there's a Atomic Habits. So
Mhm.
Mo, have you read that book?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
Great book. In fact, yeah, yeah. I was just
I
talking
was
about
gonna
it the
say,
other
go
day.
ahead. Yeah,
No,
we
go.
were just talking about it the other day. Well, just in that book and just how it talks about the importance of building habits and just the steps that it takes to create habits, not only in the short term, but really habits that are going to create long term, lasting impact.
Yeah, and if you want those hidden wins, you need two things. First, you need self-control because that's a massive leadership win. When leaders regulate their emotions, it helps them to build stable teams. And Daniel Goleman, who does a lot of EQ research, says that emotional self-regulation is the number one predictor of a long-term leadership success. Second thing is this: consistency when it's quiet builds trust when it's loud. Think about that one. Your reliability during the ordinary days when you see your team determines their loyalty to you during the chaos. If you want your team to follow you when everything goes bad and hits the fan, you need to give them a reason to follow you in the ordinary days, the dog days of summer, as they call it in baseball. And so true leaders don't need recognition. They do everything quietly and they say, "Look, give me the responsibility." Because the recognition is external. Great leaders give recognition away and then they internalize the responsibility and say, "Give me the responsibility." Leaders driven by purpose are going to outlast those who are driven by praise. So the question for our audience today is, are you a leader that's driven by purpose or driven by praise?
Trust. She talks about an individual within an organization that really kept to themselves, didn't really want to interact with any other individuals. And when it came time to seek out help, no one was necessarily willing to help that individual just merely because they didn't really trust what he had to do. And so he started instead coming in and stepping out of his shell, even though it made him uncomfortable, asking about people's weekends, asking about how their vacation was, how their time off was, how their family was. And even though it wasn't necessarily his favorite thing to do, it started to break down those walls and build that trust, which served as that base for creating those wins and kind of serving as that gateway to build that trust, kind of like what you were talking about.
Yeah, I love that. Brings me to the second part of that, which after we have those hidden wins, leaders, let's talk about your leadership footprint this year. I want you to ask yourself this question: what did people experience because of me this year? Your leadership is measured by your emotional wake that's going to ripple and go further than you even realize it. Remember, people are going to remember you as a leader about how you made them feel. That's what Scott was just saying right there. It's how you make people feel that they're going to remember for life. They might remember some of the wins or some of the losses if they were great wins or they were hard losses, but they're always going to remember how you made them feel. Second question is this: did I bring clarity? Did I bring empowerment? And did I bring steadiness to my team? Because if you didn't, it was probably more confusion or tension. So leaders, your emotional tone becomes your team's emotional climate. So I always tell people when leaders come to me and I'm talking with somebody and one of my clients says, "Well, my team is they're out of control. They're emotionally unstable. They're not doing anything right." That tells me more about the leader than it does about the team. Because Scott, I'm going to let you finish this sentence for me because it comes from Jocko. There are no bad teams.
There are only bad leaders.
That's it. There's no bad teams. There's only bad leaders. And so, Scott, I've got one more question for our audience, and here it is. When you walk into a room, do people breathe easier or do they brace themselves? Leaders carry atmosphere. They bring psychological safety. It doesn't mean that everybody needs to feel hunky-dory. Scotty P, you know what kind of coach I am. I yell and scream, but I also have a good time. And all of my student athletes know that I love them to death. And that's why I do things the way that I do, because I expect a lot out of me and I expect a lot out of them. So are you the kind of person that people say, gosh, I'm glad they're here? Or better, a better question to ask is, after you've been with somebody, are they better for having spent time with you?
Yeah, I'll even take you one step further. If you're still unsure, call an emergency meeting. How does your staff, how do your coworkers, how do your mentees, how do they all feel when you call an emergency meeting? So if you're truly connected with your employees, if you're truly connected with your staff, if you have that trust, you have that relationship with them, you call an emergency meeting, they're like, okay, cool. That sounds awesome. Like it's something important, but we're not worried about this emergency meeting. Versus you call an emergency meeting, if they are panicking, if they are losing sleep, if they are sweating bullets, if they are just crying coming into this meeting, then there is something wrong and you are the problem. So
Always.
Mo,
Yeah.
go
If
ahead.
I could say one more part
Yeah.
about that, specifically about December. Leaders, December's shows whether you were building people all year or if you were building pressure. If your team thrives without your micromanagement, you're doing a great job. But if everything collapses without you, you're not leading, you're just hoarding the control. So again, what kind of leader were you this year?
Great question. Are they looking forward to being off for Christmas or excited to come back?
That's right.
So Mo, before we head out for today, do you have any final thoughts for us?
Yeah, just this one. Ending well, it's not about intensity, it's all about intention. Leaders are always intentional. I never have a conversation that I haven't thought of before. I might have thought about it 5 minutes before I walked in, but I knew what I was going to say. And there were usually 5 or 6 different responses that I had to each potential scenario. But everything that you do has to be with intentionality. And also this, December is the truth teller in your leadership. December doesn't lie. How your people are acting right now is a reflection on you, not them. So if they're acting great right now, bravo. Congratulations, leader.
Man, what a great way to end. So we appreciate you guys all spending part of your day with us. And I can't believe I'm saying it, but this is our last episode for the year. So the whole year we've been talking about building a sustainable influence. So thank you guys so much for listening. So make sure, if you haven't, if you've enjoyed what you've heard, please rate, review, subscribe. We'll pick up a new theme in the new year. So it truly helps more people discover the show. Remember to swing by rtclc.com and join our monthly newsletter for exclusive tips and deeper insights you won't hear on the podcast. And until next time, which will be in the new year, lead with purpose, stay authentic, and make an impact.